Hi everyone. Okay, so my name is Gil Bahat, and despite what the invitation and the meetup said, I'm no longer a free agent. I'll be joining a cybersecurity in a matter of few days. So that's just a small update. And today I'm going to talk with you about differentiators in CI/CD systems. So the nice thing, if you've ever touched a CI or a CD system, and in particular if you've been a free agent and run into clients, is that there are just so many of them. So we get to appreciate, and logo makers get to rake on this visual beauty. I mean, look at it. It's just so pretty and colorful. But as pretty as colorful as it may be, it leaves us with a problem. That is, we need a CI/CD system. And there's just so much to choose from. And pretty much, unless you've been developing under a rock, you need a CI/CD system. And the first question is, why are there so many options out there? We probably need just one, or maybe at most two. So we should really give that thing a thought. And even more than that, there's CI and there's CD. We usually lump them together. The expression is usually CI/CD, but they don't necessarily have to be the same. CI handles integration, and CD handles deployment. These are not the same. And CI is fed or triggered by code and code changes. That's usually when you want to integrate. And CD is fed by artifact changes. You have an artifact or something deployable, you want to deploy it, you want to ship it. These are usually, let's say, daisy chained, but not necessarily always. So the way I want to analyze that is look first from the customer's perspective, what we have and what we need. And then I'm going to follow up by looking at how CI/CD systems seem to adapt to those needs. So the first thing that is going to be different between companies is, no, sorry, just 2 clicks. Okay, so first when it comes to integration need is, what are we building? Do we have a cloud native target? Do we have an OS native target? Those are going to be very different. Mobile, embedded, IoT, there are just tons of things that companies build. I mean, okay, we're going to have a cloud native session in particular later on, but it's not the only thing that's out there. And are we hosting on-prem or online? That's also a derivative of it. I mean, let's say, for example, if we have an embedded or an IoT target, it may make more sense to be on-prem. And even so, despite building, there's also supporting. That is, let's say we're building a cloud native service, but that service needs to respond or communicate with OS native apps or embedded apps. That means that our testing, and not just what we're building, also will heavily impact our integration needs. And when it comes to deployment needs, it's somewhat the same, but again, not exactly. So what are we shipping? We could ship installable binaries, public containers, backend services, internally shipping, mobile apps, SDKs, source repos, again, many more. And those, again, are going to be a differentiator. And do we have a need for smart deployment strategies? Yeah, we do. If the only thing you're doing is tossing something across the wall to the deliverable or to production, you're probably doing it wrong. You want canaries or beta testers or things like that. So that's also going to be needed. And another key differentiator, or as we said about being under rock, is that we most likely already have a CI/CD system. Unless we've just founded our company, we likely have something in place. And more importantly, we have some competency in it. And that's very important value, because migrating a CI/CD system and acquiring competency, whether internally or externally, is a process, and it involves costs, either direct or indirect. And that's including the cost of a commercial CI/CD system. Okay, so those things are going to impact our angle as a customer. So how do offerings seem to adapt or customize themselves to this situation? So one of the key differentiators is that as this is a very complex task, especially proprietary products, try to template and simplify things for you. In particular, things like integrations. One of the key selling points is, hey, you have GitHub as a source control system. I can integrate with that seamlessly and magically. And that's one thing that's almost obvious in every CI/CD products literature. And on the other hand, it's not like community software don't aim for the same thing because it delivers value. And the thing about community software is that it does have a huge plugin pool. If you've touched Jenkins, you've seen that for yourself. But the quality will vary a lot about the maintainability of a particular plugin. And that's something that a commercial product will likely, or at least hopefully, deliver upon. And yes, that's huge value. That's one of the things that's extremely important about creating a flow. CI/CD is about a flow. Then again, only thus much can be simplified. It's pretty much like SDKs and libraries haven't obsoleted programmers. Templates and integrations aren't going to let you get rid of your DevOps team. Your DevOps team is still going to be extremely important in integrating the software, and especially if your needs are complex. Needs that are complex can only be simplified that much. And that's the one thing that's also noticeable about commercial product literature is that they have maintenance FTEs. That's a full-time employee estimates about how hard it is to configure, maintain the product, and build pipelines. But those are pretty much a wild guess estimates because of the complexity and the variance in the complexity of a given installation. I've seen customers with trivial CI/CD setups, and I've seen customers with extremely complex multi-step installations that have been much harder to maintain and in particularly migrate. But the one thing that is obvious and floats high value is specialization. Because as we've noticed, some of these fall into a certain style, which has become more popular, the cloud native style. Unsurprisingly, we have a session past this one that's dedicated to cloud native development. But if we know that a given customer is cloud native, so to speak, then we can do away with the lots of things that aren't cloud native and integrate with things that are considered standard in cloud native environment, let's say Kubernetes, for example. And yet, even if we look at that particular specialization, one size may not fit all. It's still saying that all cloud-native systems are the same is a gross oversimplification, which, again, we're going to see in the upcoming lecture. And the other thing is that that is not the sole domain, that is not solely the domain of commercial software. That's a community products are trying to offer the same. In particular, Argo CD of the upcoming lecture, and they have been developed with that need in mind. That is, companies that have seen themselves try to build a CI/CD pipeline in a cloud-native company have developed these open-source products to scratch that particular itch. So that's, while a differentiator, that still doesn't make the cut between commercial and non-commercial. And the other thing is that we're looking at a service. One of the best selling point of these is that it's a service that's being managed for you. And the thing is that even companies that don't use a service treat it internally as a service. That is, you have a DevOps team, they maintain the CI/CD system, and they do their things behind the curtain, and it feels like an internal service. It's almost like a service. I mean, as a developer, you don't feel the, let's say, the budget or the complexity of maintaining the DevOps team. The DevOps team does it for you, does everything for you. And since there is a need for things like on-prem and in-house, even companies that do offer cloud services, for the most part, they will offer a roll your own version too. The need is obvious and it's there, but, and that's an important but, and that's something that I have a real-world story to share with, is that products that have been designed to be deployed as a service will probably give you a real headache when you try to deploy them locally. That is, I've been given a script with that particular product that's supposed to provision Kubernetes cluster, deploy the services one by one, configure the secrets, configure everything. You run the script. As it happens, it didn't work. Still not sure why. And then I was just left with two pieces. I was left with the pieces because there's not much that you can do unless you're really familiar with that particular software. And that's something that you probably won't happen with software that has been designed from the get-go to be locally installed. With Jenkins, you have pre-installed packages. It's a monolith. Yeah, it's bad with, with so many aspects, but it's readily installable. That does have it going for it. And the thing about roll your own, and one of the triggers for roll your own, is that it offers maximum capabilities, but it takes lots of effort to make use of them. And competency is always hard to come by. That's one of the other things, is that when you have the competency, you want to employ it, but you may also want to employ it for other things. And commercial providers know that. And when they see that they are able to save your competency, they price it accordingly. And sometimes it can be extremely expensive or even overly expensive for a small startup. But what you get with commercial products is that you get a limited edition that's by design limited, not to cannibalize the upper end sales. And if you want the fully flexible version, you have to shell out seriously. And then you have a buyer's dilemma whether to buy a pricey product or buy pricey competency. But one thing about managing your own service, which is decidedly a burden, which doesn't float value, is security and updates. When you have a service, you do get security updates and other software updates for free. And that's also important. But here's another thing. We've talked about migration. We talked about that most companies already have a CI/CD product. So one of the things that could float a lot of value was to have migration assistance. But when you look at the offerings, they don't seem to offer much more than rudimentary, yeah, I can maybe start up Jenkins pipelines. That's not enough. It turns out this would have been a killer feature, but it's just so difficult a problem that almost no vendor has made any headway in it. Summary. So there's no clear winner. You will likely need some in-house competency. And that in-house competency is best employed first at analyzing your needs and checking out what works for you and what may not. And at that point, especially if you're a young startup, there's a balance between a proprietary product, which will cost you a lot of money, and a free product, which will cost you in finding outsourced competency. And sometimes you have little ability to forecast the future. Like one of my past clients, which was a very nice company, and they brought me in to configure the Jenkins installation, and I did so, and in 9 months, they just had to close up shop. So, as it happens. And a really nice startup. It was sad to see them go. But that really exemplifies the thing about the ability to forecast the future. If you don't have much runway, then throwing tens of thousands of dollars, and this is what we're talking about an enterprise quality CI/CD product, might not be the best decision. So some core differences will take you towards a clear path. Let's say, for example, cloud native versus no-cloud, because you've just chucked away all sorts of stuff that you don't need. But otherwise, you want to keep your options flexible, keep a migration path in mind, try not to use, let's say, specialized features unless you really have to, and keep in mind that ops time will always carry a premium. Even if you do have the competency, that's quite likely that it's not what you want your engineering, your DevOps engineering to do at full throttle. That's it. Questions, anyone? Wow, okay. Thank you.